Okay, what I'm going to cover in this tutorial is just some of the graphical changes we want to make to our drawing set before, or to these drawings before actually setting them up in our sheets. So it's just kind of standard practice, some graphic arrangements of these dimensions, some of our annotations, things like that. So the first thing that I want to do is take a look at the crop region. So I'm going to click down here at the bottom, and it's this, there's the crop side, but this one on the right has a little light bulb next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. And what you're going to see pop up is this rectangle. This rectangle is what will be shown when we transfer our drawing, this first floor plan, onto our sheet. Okay, so whatever is inside this rectangle is what's going to be shown. Now, this is, if we bring this down, then that's all we see. Okay, so this crop region is a window into our floor plan. Occasionally, if you drew outside of this crop region, and we tend to see this issue come up more in sections and elevations and on floor plans. But if your crop region is set too tight, then you're not going to see the entire drawing. And if your crop region is turned off, right, then we only see a portion of the drawing. So the first thing I want to do is just make sure that the crop region is set correctly to where it needs to be placed. So what we're going to want to do is select our crop region and really try to bring it as close as we can to the drawing. Okay, you're going to really want to try to bring everything as close as you can to the actual drawing itself. Just so that maybe this helps to understand the crop region a little better, I'm going to go ahead and make this a bit wider. Okay, I'm going to go into our sheet where we're eventually going to drop this in. And I'll just go ahead and click and drag. And you'll see that here's my sheet. And whatever size the crop region is from the first floor is what ends up getting dropped in along. And you'll notice that the drawing title at the bottom spans the entire length of the crop region. So that's one of the reasons why I want to try to keep it compact. Okay, go ahead and select this and just delete it. So I'll go ahead and select the crop region and bring this in kind of as close as I can. Now it's really important to turn the crop region off. Turn it off when you're done, because that line, that rectangle, will actually print if you don't turn it off. So with the floor plans, the crop region really isn't that big of a deal. You do want to make sure that it is compact and it is cropped. It really becomes a larger issue when we get to the elevations. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. And I say that it becomes a big deal because sometimes these elevation markers, or sorry, sometimes these elevations do not show the entire building. So sometimes you end up having something like that. So you want to go through each elevation and make sure that you're actually seeing the entire elevation of your structure. Okay, and if not, then it's probably because your crop region isn't large enough. Okay, so you're gonna have to make that adjustment. And then again, turn it off. So go through all your elevations, make sure you see the entire structure, and that's the same for your section. Okay, and this is really where I see the biggest mistakes is I'll typically see something cut off, the piece of the roof just slightly cut off. And because people really aren't paying attention to the crop region, this is what that side looks like. So just make sure that the entire building is seen and that you're seeing what you need to see. Okay, so I'm going to fix that. Go ahead and bring this over just like that, and then turn it off. Oops, clicking on the wrong one. There we go. Okay, so we talked about the crop region. Let's go back to the first floor and let's talk about our elevation markers. Okay, so we have our elevation markers up here, right in the northeast, southwest. Now, at this point, yours might be somewhere out here, or it might be, somewhere out there, because we didn't pay too much attention to it when we started the drawing. But now we really want to bring these close in, as close as we can. Okay. Now, ideally, you want your elevations, your north and south elevation, to pretty much be aligned the same with the east and west elevations to be aligned. Now, the thing that I want you to pay attention to is right here, this triangle. If we click that, you'll notice this blue line pops up. The blue line is a representation of where the elevation is actually taken from. So it's as if we're standing on this blue line looking at the building. So when I go and I double click on this triangle, that'll take me to my north elevation, right? And that's what I see. But if I was to have this blue line right there, then that would mean that I'm standing right at this line, and looking inward, which then actually gives me a section cut. And this is important because a big common mistake that I see is people assume that, okay, well, I see the elevation, Revit creates the elevation, so then they just throw the elevation onto the drawing without realizing that they're actually throwing a section. So even though this says my north elevation, this is clearly a section drawing. It's a cut through the building, and it's a cut through the building because this blue line is cutting through the building. So the next thing you're going to want to do is click on each of these triangles on the elevation. First, move the elevation markers where they need to be. Then click on the triangle portion and make sure that the blue line is outside of the building. Okay, it could be right up close to it, just as long as it's not inside. I'll go ahead and check this one. That's fine. The same thing over here. That one's fine. And this one is fine. Okay. The next thing is going to be our section line. So we have these section lines. Now the section line is running through the entire building. So let's click on this, and this one might be easier. So there's a couple things. The section line is running through the entire building, and we really don't want that to happen, just because it could cause some confusion. If I'm looking at my drawing and I'm really focused on this in the powder room, it's very easy to maybe forget that this line is the section line, and you might actually think, oh, well, this line is actually, maybe they want to do a step up. Maybe the water closet is a step above, right? So this line itself can be misleading. So when we do section cuts through a building, we can select the line, and then you'll notice this little kind of, I don't know, lightning bolt right at the center. If you click on this, that's going to split the section line. Okay. Now it doesn't do anything to the actual section. It's just a graphics. So it's just adjusting the section line that we see. Now the section line, when we split that, has these two dots. If you click on one of them, you could extend the line, right? So if you want it really short or if you want it much longer, it's entirely up to you. I always like to just have it slightly crossing. So that you get the idea of what it is the section is trying to show. So I'm going to do the same thing with this here. And I'll just move this in a little bit, and this section is fine. Okay. You also want to try to be consistent if you can with the placements of your section. So here you'll notice that this section marker is inside between the building and the dimensions. Over here, the section marker is outside. This too can be confusing because if I'm looking at this dimension, it says 24 feet. And if I'm not paying close attention, I might think, okay, it's 24 feet from here to there, right? So that can be confusing. So let me go ahead and bring this down, and I'll go ahead and bring this over here. Okay. Okay. The other thing is, let's go ahead and click on this section. You see this blue dotted line? This is what is going to be shown in the section. So the first thing is you want to make sure that it's cutting through the entire building. So this blue line is actually showing from one side of the building all the way to the other side. If it's not, then that's when you're going to want to adjust this. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move this out. The other thing is this line over here, you want to make sure that that I'm capturing the farthest wall. Because if I move this in like this, okay, then it's not going to show me. It's not showing me any of the windows that are behind here. And it's not showing the door that's over here on this side. So it only shows whatever is in this little, let's try to pull it up. It's only going to show me whatever is inside this little box there, this of dashed lines. So we're going to go ahead and bring this out this way. Okay. Now, I'm going to, so that's it for the floor plan. I'm going to go ahead and go into my elevation. And I'm going to want to make that same cut, right? That I'm going to go on a click here and make sure that that section marker is just slightly cutting through the building. Okay. So you're going to want to do that with all of your elevations. Is go in, I think I already have them on the other elevations. Yeah, right. So going in, just slightly cutting through. The next thing you want to do is adjust our elevation markers. Okay. What we want to do here, so yours might also be kind of all over the place. We need all of our elevation markers to be in the same location, and ideally to hide the or to adjust the elevation or the level line so that it's not running through the building. Okay. The reason why, again, is communication. We want to make sure that we are communicating correctly to a contractor or to whoever's looking at these drawings. And if we show a line running through the building, then that's an opportunity for mistakes to happen. Now, clearly, yes, we could blame whoever's reading them and say, well, they should know better, but construction errors are costly. Whether it's your fault or somebody else's fault, it always costs money and it always costs time. Even if you're not the one spending the money, it's going to cost you time. And so you want to try to eliminate as many kind of communication errors through your drawings as possible. So that's why we want to go ahead and move this over. Now it's not necessarily as simple as just clicking and moving this to this side, right? Which is the intuitive thing to do. These level lines are essentially reference lines throughout Revit, right? So when I go onto second floor plan, we've said that the second floor is 4 feet above, is being cut 4 feet above our second floor line. So Revit recognizes second floor based on the placement of this line. This line here is actually a plane that is cutting through this entire building. Now it's invisible. Revit doesn't actually show it to us, but that's how Revit understands, or is how the code is written within Revit. So when I click on this line, you'll notice that on this side it says 3D. And what this is referring to is that when I click on this, I'm clicking on the 3D plane. So I'm clicking on this imaginary plane that is cutting through the entire building. And because it's cutting through the entire building, I can then reference it in floor plans or ceiling plans. I can reference it when I'm adding components and things like that, because everything is based off of this plane. If I move this plane over, then that means that this plane is only referencing objects that's wherever this plane is, right? And if it's not cutting through the building, then I'm no longer going to be able to reference it. So we really do not want to adjust the 3D plane. What we want to do is just adjust the line. So I'm going to click on 3D, and you'll notice that now says 2D. Okay. And what this means is that I now am in control of the 2D line. So that's just the regular line. So let me go and just pull this back just a little bit. And you'll notice when I click on this, I really get two dots. I get that 2D dot, that little blue one, but then I also get this big circle one. This is the 3D line. So it's the same plane, but one is the dot, one is the 3D plane. Okay. So what I want to do is just click and move this 2D line just away from the building. I'm going to do the same thing for the first floor. I'll click 3D, make sure it turns into 2D, and then click and drag. I'm going to get that to line up there. Now this one is all the way off. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take and move. Oh, I didn't do that. I'm going to come over here, click on this kind of blue, this big circle, and drag this over to this side, just like that. Okay, so now they're all lined up. And I'll select on the elevation, click on 2D, and bring this over away from the building, just like that. So now when I'm looking at my elevation drawing, I'm looking at the actual elevation of the building. I don't have a section line cutting through. I don't have my level lines going through. I'm just looking at the elevation, which is the key thing I want to expose. Now you also might have some dimensions, and those dimensions are fine to keep. Okay? But you want to have as clean of a drawing as possible. Okay. And at this point, I think that's it. You're going to want to go ahead and make these changes to your elevations and to your section. So if we go to our section, you're going to want to, let's go ahead and save. If we go to our section, we're going to want to do the same thing. Select the section marker, click there. Oh, we're going to go ahead and move this. That's already selected to 2D. And I'm just going to bring this over. Uh-oh. Let me undo. Something went wrong here. I moved the entire 3D line, which is not what I want. And now it turns into 2D. Okay, let's bring this over. Ah, you see how there's a lock pad right here? We're going to want to go ahead and unlock that. We didn't have to do that for the elevations, but you want to make sure that the lock pad is unlocked. Let's see. Hopefully that does it. There we go. So that was the problem. So again, you're going to want to hit the lock pad. It's on 2D. You can also lock it once it's there, if you wanted to, but that's up to you. And now I'll go ahead and move that over here. There you go, just like that. So our sections, you're going to want to do the same thing. So all of your elevations, all of your sections should have the elevation lines away from the actual drawing, not cutting through. And then your section markers should also be cut so that it's just slightly cutting through the building, but it's not really interfering with the drawing itself. Once we have the floor plans done, the sections, the elevations, we're now ready to put these drawings on sheets, which is going to be the next tutorial.